Hi everyone, so today I'm looking at another awesome map video. This one is from YouTubers known as POGKPP and PolSerb, no doubt a collaboration. I really like that feature YouTube adds when you collaborate with people, you can kind of put both of their names. That's such a cool feature that I really enjoy. So yeah, overall, this is about the history of the Balkans every year. It seems like it's going to reach to the modern day, so I'm guessing the 2020s, which is going to be really interesting because for those of you who have frequented this channel frequently or are new, I am a huge fan of the Balkans. I would say, in terms of a geographic sense, it's my favorite area of the world to study, right next to Anatolia, which is funny because they are right next to each other. So, I even went to Greece because I would say, of all the history and cultures that I have looked into all my life, I would say the Greeks are my favorite history and culture to study. Like I'm kind of obsessed with the Greeks. I even went to Greece last May, went to Athens and visited islands like Naxos, Paros, Samos, etc. Um because I'm just such a huge fan of Greek culture and civilization and history, and even the mythology is great too, So, again, I'm obsessed with the Greeks, but obviously, this is going to be way more than just the Greeks. We're covering the Balkans, and no doubt we're going to see very familiar faces like the Bulgarians, the Serbs, so we're definitely gonna the Ottomans, because the Ottomans obviously ruled the Balkans. So we're gonna see a lot of familiar faces and places, which is gonna be really fun. And yeah, overall, I have to say that I'm just really excited to get into it. So I'm just not gonna waste any time. But wait, before I get into it, if you want to watch the original video by the original creator, the link is down in the description down below. It's always the first link that you'll find. And if you enjoy my channel and you want to help me out in any way, shape, or form, feel free to please like, comment, and subscribe. It would really help me out a lot. I really want this channel to grow. And my goal is 1,000 subscribers, so it would really help me out a lot. With that said, now without any further ado, we ought to get into it. Let us watch the history of the Balkans on maps every year. Happy to be seeing familiar faces. Sparta, Athens, the Thessalonian League, um, and Lydia. We did cover this. I believe we did make a map video about Anatolia, I believe, a while back. I think it did extend to the Balkans, or was it the history or the map video about the Byzantines every year? I think that might be the one. But yeah, where Lydia kept coming up, and Lydia was one of the most powerful forces of the ancient world, and one of the big first powers to spawn into Anatolia, which is really interesting because I've been looking into it, and you know, it's named after like my first wife in Skyrim, so that was pretty cool. Um, Oh, I remember these guys. Wait. Yes, these guys, the Odrysian Kingdom. So, for those of you who don't know, I've actually gotten into Total War. I got it back in January, and I've been playing Total War, and, funnily enough, because of my love for the Balkans, I played as Macedon first. I've done 3 campaigns as Macedon. The first one ended in disaster, where I got taken out by my neighbors. The second, I did really well conquering Italy and Spain. I accidentally deleted the save though, and could not recover it. And then my third and current one, um, I seem to really be obsessed with conquering this place. And yeah, this kingdom's always around, but they only ever have one holding, and they're really easy to take out. So yeah, I don't know. They're usually my first enemy that I manage to conquer. So yeah. Okay, so I think we're around the time, yeah, where the Persian Empire and then their conquest into Greece, or their attempted conquest, which did not turn out well for them, which is definitely very interesting. The Persians' failure to take Greece, which we did cover with epic history, but definitely the Greeks were, yeah, the underdogs in that area. And seeing Persia fail is a pretty big upset, considering the Persians were at the time the biggest empire in the world, you know? You see Lydia pop back up for one breath of life to immediately get stomped out by Persia again. Um, the Delian League. Yeah, definitely with the leagues. I'm remembering when we covered the Peloponnesian War by Kings and Generals, another really great series, which is the funniest thing to me, to watch Athens lose its mind and decide they should rule the world. Like, the Athenians were wild in that series. I'd never seen Athens like that. So that series did shock me with just the aggression of the Athenians at the time, and Sparta, by comparison, being the more level-headed of the two. That definitely changed my perspective on the two powers of Greece at the moment. Yes, you're seeing the rise of Macedon with Philip and Alexander. I always keep forgetting Alexander's the third, even though, like, in just my head he's just the Alexander, but obviously there were several Alexanders before him. And we're actually around my favorite era. For those of you who may or may not know, my favorite era in history is the Hellenistic age, which, yeah, basically begins with, like, Macedon's rule of the Balkans, and then their subsequent conquest eastward, and carrying on through the Diadochi Wars, and basically carrying on until the rise of Rome. I feel like the Hellenistic age is my favorite period in history. Like I keep saying, I'm like a huge fan of Greek culture, Greek history, and the Hellenistic age has that. It's basically almost like the yeah when the Greeks were at their like most influential, though actually that's debatable because they continue to be very influential through Rome. But point is, it's definitely my favorite era in history, and I think it's very overlooked. Like I said, I would kill to have like a Diadochi War series. Like I would kill to have like a series, because I feel like most people kind of overlook the entire era despite it lasting centuries. Usually it's like, okay, we have Alexander's conquest, now let's jump to the Punic Wars and Rome's rise, and then that's kind of it. Like the entire time where the successors, the Macedonian successors, were basically the most powerful forces in the world, just tends to get overlooked, which makes me sad. And there's only one movie about it, at least one big relevant movie, which is the Alexander 2004 film, which I plan on watching in the future for this channel, doing a movie reaction. Point is, this is like around my favorite era in history, which I'm really happy to see. Yeah, and here we are, basically with the era of the Roman conquest of Greece. Last year for my birthday, we actually did watch that video, because I'm kind of starting a tradition for every year of my birthday. I choose like a new video to kind of watch about a topic that I really love. So last year, for my 25th birthday, back in February 13, I chose to watch the Roman conquest of Greece, because it's, topic that really fascinated me. And just seeing just how the Romans basically conquered Greece, it was a masterful performance, I must say. In terms of the diplomatic warfare, the Greeks were so divided that the Romans really did use it to their advantage, as the Greeks were fighting each other and, worrying about the encroaching power of Macedon and whatnot. They kept inviting the Romans back to essentially keep, and for a lot of part of that conflict, the Romans were seen as the good guys by the Greeks. It wasn't until the very end that the Greeks were like, oh snap, like, the Romans are actually the true threat. And then by the time they even attempted to try to form a league and fight the Romans, it was too late. The Romans already basically had the Balkans. So it's definitely a great show of how the division of Greece really helped the Romans to just take the Balkans, essentially. Again, masterful in terms of diplomacy and PR. One of the greatest examples of divide and conquer. And yeah, for my birthday tomorrow, I'm gonna be looking at another video about the Greek War for independence, so I'm really looking forward to that tomorrow. So yeah, just overall very interesting. Yeah. There comes a point in this video where I imagine a good part of this video is just gonna be the Romans, because the Romans had a freaking noose, a tight grip around the Balkans for such a long time, like over 1,000 years. Just, it is insane. We're probably not gonna see dramatic shifts until like definitely like the Byzantine era of Rome, but yeah. Yeah, we're just chilling with Rome now. Dang, just a constant like shift. Obviously, I think we were getting into the Diocletian era, the Tetrarchy and whatnot. That's why those dramatic shifts, and you keep noticing the Romans toying with the idea of the East and West splitting, which has always been an interesting development. The Romans looked at their vast empire and were like, "This is too much for one guy. We need more than one guy to run this." Which has always been a very interesting development, that they just saw their empires too big to just be ruled by one person. And yeah, definitely, it was just, it was such a complex machine that it is kind of amazing that even one person did manage to do it for such a long time before the Romans eventually were like, we need to split it, you know? Good. Alright. So yes, this is definitely the part of the video where things start to get a lot more juicy, because definitely through the Eastern Roman Empire era, or the Byzantines as they're known, is definitely when the Balkans kind of start dramatically shifting a lot more, because for a long time it was just under the Roman banner. But as we've covered a lot of Byzantine history, we see that the Balkans were definitely a very, especially later on as time progressed, definitely became more and more contested as a thing, as various places like groups like the Serbs, the Bulgarians, and so on and so forth kept encroaching deeper and deeper, and the Roman emperors had to beat them back, and it eventually the hegemony that the Romans had over the Balkans definitely became, you know, far more contested. As we were watching the map videos from the map of the Byzantine Roman era, and even, there came a point even where, like, eastward they were a bit more stable, especially with Anatolia, but the Balkans kept switching, and there kept being a lot more conflict as forces kept showing up in new groups. So I think we're definitely in that area, which is a very interesting era for the Romans. Mm-hmm. This might be my favorite music we've ever seen from a map video. I'm actually kind of low-key vibing to this. Once this video is done, I'm gonna be replaying this and looking for the soundtrack that he used. Because low-key, though, this is actually kind of fire. I will say, though, in terms of presentation, I think so far, of all the map videos I've seen, this one might be the best. Which makes sense considering he's been spending so many years to get this out. I imagine a lot of time to perfect the presentation, but with so much history and whatnot. But I have to say, just in terms of the graphics, definitely the best map video that I've seen so far on this channel. Yeah, again, as I said, the Balkans definitely became a major contested point for the Byzantine Romans, as constantly having to fight. Like I said, like, as we covered so much of the Byzantine Roman era in this channel, the Balkans always kind of switching territory, and then just the constant shift of the maps that we saw definitely give it a sort of unstable vibe. But yeah, that was a long point there where they just didn't have most of the Balkans under their banner, which is very interesting. The Bulgar Slayer. But yeah, Basil, my boy. I love Basil. But yeah, definitely of all the enemies of Rome, I feel like the Bulgarians I feel like the Byzantine era of Rome is certainly already just the most underrated era. Since this channel, when I first began this channel, you can look back at my earlier videos when I was watching the Belisarius series by Epic History. I even mentioned in the beginning of that series that I don't really know anything about the Byzantines. All I know is Justinian, and that's it. I at the beginning of this channel, I knew nothing about the Byzantine Romans, and watching so much videos since then about, the Balkans and the Eastern Romans, it's actually become my favorite era of Rome. I like the Byzantine era, the Eastern Roman era of Rome, more than I liked when it was unified or when the West was still around. I find this much more fascinating and fun to learn about. And it's already such an underrated part of Rome. But, also the enemies and the adversaries that they had are very underrated, because I feel like the Bulgarians are such a great rival to the Romans that we've seen. And, I always found it funny, because the Bulgarians had this trick that they always used, where whenever a Roman column was marching, they would hide on the sides, and then immediately jump them from both sides and destroy them. It's literally how Basil's reign began, with him falling for the exact same trap that the Bulgarians use, and the Bulgarians always used this trick and destroyed so many Roman armies doing that. And, I was always like, come on, guys, how many times are we gonna fall for the same trick? The Bulgarians are always using the same trick on you. I'm laughing because I'm like, come on, guys, how many times are we gonna fall for the same exact trick? The Bulgarians, you always fall for the same Bulgarian ambush. I can no longer doubt the Romans or, kind of criticize that, because like I said, ever since I started playing Rome 2 Total War, I fell for the same trick several times. During one of my Macedon playthroughs, I was like, again, this is my first Total War game. I've never played Total War before. I've never been a big PC guy. I always preferred the console. I prefer the controller, not the keyboard. I always felt like the keyboard was more complicated. But, I decided I'm just gonna play Total War and really get into, I guess, my first major step into the PC gaming world. And, I started playing last January. I just threw myself into the grand campaign and learned along the way, instead of probably looking at, playthroughs and walkthroughs and actually learning from people who knew what they were doing. And so it took me a while, because I was moving throughout the map, and at one point I was moving so slow from one part of the map to the other. I'm like, dang, this will take forever. I'm gonna need 20 turns just to get to where I need to go. And then I figured out you can do these things called forced marches, where you're able to move so much quicker. And I was so happy, because I needed to force march from Spain, which I had conquered, all the way to Britain. So all that territory was hostile, from Spain all the way to Britain, because I was at war with a faction that was stationed at Britain, so I needed to get there. When I figured out how you could force march, it was a game changer for me. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I get to move. Wait, watch out, I'm coming for you. And little did I know, it left you vulnerable to ambushes, because on my path to getting to Britain was quite the arduous journey, because I kept getting ambushed. I would force march, and then I was at war with several factions. So as I was going there, I got jumped maybe 3 times. 3 different ambushes, almost consecutively, back to back, where they kept jumping me from the sides. And then, as I kept fending off these ambushes, I managed to fend off all 3 of them, though I lost a lot of my army, weakened, and a lot of my cavalry units were destroyed, my companion cavalry. And then as I was going through that, I'm like, so this is what the Romans felt, huh? When they were fighting the Bulgarians. I kind of get it now. And then I just stopped forced marching and decided to go at a much slower pace. But yeah, after that, I got humbled. I finally got the Roman Bulgarian experience, and I'm just like, dang, dude, it really sucked for me. You know, Alexios is my favorite of the Byzantine Roman emperors. I keep mentioning the term Byzantine. I know some people would be sticklers, and I'm a stickler for it too. I just prefer to call I refer to them as Rome. Except the problem is people usually think of the West, and like when Rome was more hold. So when I'm talking about the Eastern Roman Empire and that era where the West is gone, I always in my channel say the Byzantine Romans or the Byzantine era of Rome, just so people know that I'm talking about specifically when the West is gone. Because when I just say Rome in general, I've noticed some people get the wrong idea that I'm talking about when Rome was whole or when the West was still around. So I feel like I should probably explain myself as to why I keep saying the Byzantine era of Rome or the Byzantine Romans. Um, but yeah, of that era, of the Byzantine era of Rome, Alexios is my favorite. The guy was such an absolute unit. He's my favorite emperor of the Eastern Roman era, you know? He was I love the man. Oh my gosh. I like how so much of this video has been me glazing the Romans and the Greeks. In all fairness, in my defense, they basically had control of the Balkans the longest, you know? So it's kind of hard not to just make it this video just me talking about Rome and Greeks. And I guess they're kind of they're kind of not you can't really separate them because at this point, I think in terms of like yeah, not just I think, in terms of language, the Romans at this time were mainly like they spoke Greek. That was kind of the dominant language of the Byzantine, the Eastern Romans, and you know, I always find it so interesting how the original Romans, we agree, are Latins. They spoke Latin, they wore Latin, but the Roman identity kind of just grew beyond that in terms of ethnicity. Like the Romans, like we call the Byzantine Romans, even though a lot of them were, you know, more ethnically Greek and spoke Greek, they were Roman, and that's what we called them. And there are definitely nations that do that, like here in America, for instance, you know, the original founding fathers were white men, you know what I mean? But obviously the American identity has grown to where so many people of all groups can just be American. And obviously this isn't, I'm saying this because this isn't an exclusively Roman thing. I'm American. but in terms of ethnicity, I'm Central American. My mom was from Nicaragua and my father was Salvadorian. So to call me like um Central American would be my ethnicity, but I'm American. I was born here. I was raised in the United States. I'm American. That's what I am. And so many parts of the Roman Empire were that. Like, you could be in, Britain, or you could be in, you know, Syria. There's a point in the world you could be in these places and still be Roman and have Roman citizenship and just be called a Roman. It's just really so interesting. And even though, yeah, the Greeks under Rome, because the Byzantine Romans were Greek in that sense, and it's really interesting because I was reading like letters in terms of like the medieval era and how these kingdoms would call the Byzantine Romans, and they would, in their letters, they would call them the kingdom of the Greeks. They never called them Rome. They were like, oh yes, and the kingdom of the Greeks. So they acknowledged the Romans. That's what they would call them. Certain nations and letters would refer to them as just the kingdom of the Greeks, which is just a very interesting, thing. I find really interesting in how they were, Greek, but Rome. So I think that's why I'm already obsessed with the Greeks, but it's like you can't really separate them at a point with Rome and Greeks. It just kind of meshes together. But I think we finally reached a point of the video where that's gonna change, and then we're gonna be talking about more groups. Well, at least until the Ottomans show up. But the Fourth Crusade. The Fourth Crusade is such a sad event where the Crusaders just frickin' bro, I don't know. When we were watching that series by Kings and Generals, it was rough for me because I was so sad to see what the Crusaders did and just the disrespect that they had towards the sanctity of and the history of Constantinople. Yeah, it was a really a hard series to get through. But the fact that the Romans pulled themselves out of death, it's kind of amazing too. Like, they literally pulled themselves from being dead and re-emerged. Though weakened forever, but it was really cool. Yeah, so this is a very interesting time. Obviously, the Romans pulling themselves out from the Fourth Crusade and almost dying was amazing. But we're definitely seeing much more of the Balkans emerge, the Bulgarians, Serbia, and how powerful they would become. Definitely we're seeing the growing groups and whatnot, which is all about to change because you see the Ottomans lurking here in the corner. They're about to pounce and take everything. Oh boy. Yeah, again, like, I would say of the two groups that definitely had a stranglehold over the Balkans, the first was the Romans, which we've covered for so long in this video already. The second definitely is the Ottomans. These guys had basically the last group to kind of have like this sort of monopoly on the Balkans, right? And all these groups. Yeah, they were the last. So it's just really cool to just see that. At least for this long of time. I guess there are times with wars things will change, but you know what I mean. Like in terms of just a full-on hegemony lasting centuries. Yeah, the Ottomans were the last to kind of have this stranglehold over the Balkans.
Mary is swiping.
Oh boy. Yeah, okay. It's definitely the 1800s where you see things immediately hit the fan, huh? Yeah, notice how it's the 1800s that things immediately start going dramatically south for the Ottomans, huh? Just everything. Like, all the revolts and stuff, and just, again, it's sad to see a mighty empire fall, especially one as the Ottomans. And again, just want to just advertise, tomorrow is my birthday, and I'm gonna be looking at Kings and Generals entire video about the Greek War of Independence. So, you know, if you want to stop by, maybe chill out and enjoy the video with me, I would really appreciate it. Hope to see some familiar people there. With that said, we should probably back to the video. Sorry, but yeah, it seems like the 1800s where things dramatically decline and all the revolts start coming at once. Oh boy. Okay, I'm really happy now to be seeing the arrival of more Balkan nations. So far, yeah, we see Greece, but it's about to jump, where everyone's gonna start jumping, and you know, claiming their territory. Yeah, look at all these guys. We got Romania here, we got Serbia, we got Albania, Bulgaria, Greece, just the boys as we know them are here. You know? Oh boy. Yeah, World War II and all that. and Macedonia. So much of that video was just me talking about the Roman. Okay, in my defense, yeah, so much of Balkan history was just, we're under Rome now. That's like, and then the other part, okay, we're under Ottomans now. Okay, now we're our own thing. You know what I mean? I feel like that was the majority of the Balkans history. Oh boy. But we'll see what comes there. Like I said, I've only been to Greece, guys. I've been to Athens and the islands of, like, you know, Naxos and whatnot, Paros and Samos and all that. I definitely would like, as while I am obsessed with the Greeks and Greek history and culture, and I'm, like, you know, crazy about it. I definitely would, if I had more money, would go and see other places like Bulgaria, Albania, and all that. Just, I said, the Balkans as a whole, I find the most interesting place to learn about in terms of history, and my favorite in terms of geography, right next to Anatolia. Like, these two areas, literally next to each other, are my favorite areas in the world. And, you know, I just, I'm always happy to see this. Overall, yeah, I think of all the map videos we've seen, it's hard to say the best, but I think in terms of presentation, this one might be the best. You know what I mean? This was a work of love and effort that took years for the creator to make, and again, it was all worth it to bring such a great, you know, visual display of a great area in the world to learn about. So overall, fantastic work, fantastic video, amazing, and I had a lot of fun watching it and rambling on while I was playing. So I'm gonna end the video right here, and yeah, okay, I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye, everyone.